We're going to be jumping straight into another lab, y'all. So yesterday we kind of worked through if I could think, I could talk. I'm getting this coffee. I'm getting it set up. I'm getting it set up. If we look at what we did, where we're constantly testing and evaluating our EDR by looking at things like Atomic Red Team to make sure that that particular tool is working the way it's expected and identifying gap analysis, that's great for the actual endpoint, right? That's great for the endpoints and the workstations and all the different user systems that you're working with, but it doesn't help you much when you're dealing with the network, right? So when we're dealing with the network, we're going to now kind of pivot and we're going to talk about why an active and engaged defense is important from the network standpoint. And we have our first lab of the day. We're going to play with advanced backdoors. We're going to be using the cloud VM. So I'm going to start up my cloud VMs right here. There we go. That's starting. Great. And while that's starting, I want to spend a couple of seconds and I want to talk about the anti-siphon ACE-T core certification while that's starting up. We closed out and we talked about the previous session. We talked about a number of different things. And one of the things that was discussed was certifications. A lot of certifications in the industry as a whole are ridiculously expensive. And for the record, the majority of the certifications that are out there today are pretty much cash cows, right? If you're charging something like $8,000 to $10,000 for training and then another $1,000 for certification, and then literally hundreds of dollars for a number of different renewals and things of that nature, that's a good business model. That's great. And for the record, Zach and I hate multiple choice certifications, like with an intense deep passion on how much we hate multiple choice certification tests. So to deal with that hatred that we have deep down right in our souls, we decided that we would create a multiple choice certification. Right. Let me explain what I mean by all of this, because I know that that's hopelessly confusing. So what we have is the ACE-T core certification, which is a pay what you can certification. There is a cost for it, and I'll explain why there's a cost for it here in just a second. But the reason why this particular certification we feel is fundamentally different than other certifications is, number one, you have 100 multiple choice questions, and these questions are based on the Intro to SOC core skills, and they're also based on the Intro to Security classes that I have written at BHIS and Anti-Siphon over the past few years. However, the real key to this is the second part. The second part is, after passing the exam, you will be able to start the second phase. You will be assigned 10 hands-on CTF challenges in the anti-siphon cyber range, and you will have to solve at least 5 of them. You will also have to upload 2 write-ups for the challenges that you were able to solve. These write-ups will become publicly accessible on your certification verification page. What the hell are we doing, and why are we doing it this way? Well, we want to make sure that people understand concepts, and that's why we have the multiple choice certification side of it. But I also want to make sure that people can actually do things hands-on. They can think through their problems, and that is 5 solved CTF challenges. But I also want people to be able to communicate effectively with their coworkers, so you have to do those 2 write-ups. And for the record, I'm not going to review your write-ups. This has been some conversation in the team for a while, but those write-ups are displayed with your certification. So if you want to say that you are ACE-T certified, you'll get a link with your ACE-T certification, and then you can share that link on your resume. And this is a dirt cheap certification. I think the lowest cost, I don't even know what the lowest cost is. If somebody can actually check that for me, that would be awesome. But it's a very, very, very low cost certification. And if you decide that you're just going to do absolute garbage write-up for your certification, that's fine, because that's on your certification profile. We are checking to make sure that people aren't cheating. Yes, it's $5. $5 is the lowest value for this certification. So if you're trying to get started in this industry, you can pay $5 and you can get a certification from ACE-T on that. So there's our pricing. $5. Don't Now, I understand there's money is tight, and we'll talk more about this when we get to Thursday, but $5 to get a certification and put it on your resume to get you into the field, that is the cheapest we could actually do it. I got 5 on it. Yeah, nice, cyber dopamine. It's in your MetaCTF portal. Once you have logged into MetaCTF, you scroll down and you'll see the ACE-T certification is there. Also, Zach, I don't know if Zach's still on, but Zach had write-up instructions for how to get set up with the certification. If we could get those added into the resources for active defense and cyber deception in our Discord server, I would greatly appreciate it on that as well. So yeah, we've got the multiple choice. We've got proof that you can do this stuff hands-on. And then you also have the ability to do a write-up that'll highlight your skills and your ability to demonstrate your capabilities. All right. The other thing, let me go to my dashboard really quick. There we go. Is if you want to keep going, you can also continue to do more stuff with MetaCTF where you can up level your skills. So it's not just about the certification. If you want people to see your certification, they want to see that you got certified in this area, they want to see your write-up in this area, and then you want to keep going, we also have a cyber range that takes that certification and extends it in other areas as well. So that's kind of the heads up for the certification that we have. It's $5, everybody. $5 for you to do it. But right now, we're going to jump into another lab. All right, so I've got all my virtual machines are started. I'm going to connect via RDP. And I want to establish the problem statement here real quick because we did the Atomic Red Team lab yesterday. We're going to do the Advanced Command and Control lab right here. Advanced C2, right? Advanced C2. Now, oh, by the way, if you're worried about the certification, you can go back and you can see that it's in the, like if you want to take the classes because you're in this one, it is also available in D2L if you're paying for on-demand. And also the videos for those 2 classes, Intro to SOC Core Skills and Intro to Security, are available on the Anti-Siphon YouTube channel as well. So if you want to go back and take that training, go after the certification, it's totally available for y'all to do that. So what we have here is we have a backdoor, and it's one of the backdoors that we created a number of years ago at Black Hills Information Security that's highlighting kind of some steganography techniques that we use in packet captures, in C2 traffic. So packet captures don't immediately show our backdoor. Now, to be honest, I call this an advanced C2, and there's a lot more advanced C2s than what we're showing here, but we created this one to kind of articulate the problem of trying to do network-based threat hunting on an individual packet capture with any basic level of obfuscation in that command and control. So you're going to cd into the opt covert directory. Then you're going to run TCP dump. You're not going to resolve any IP addresses. You're going to see the ASCII, and you're going to read in this covert C2 PCAP. Then you're going to pipe it through less. And this actually has covert command and control. You can hit spacebar until you see a line that has view state in it, and then you're going to see the C2 traffic right here. So if I zoom in on this C2 traffic, that value EYJB21, whatever, that's the C2 traffic. And I'll explain more about what that view state parameter is and why we used ASP view state and why it's so incredibly powerful for command and control here in just a little bit. And if you want to, you can try to decode it. I want to see if anybody can actually decode it. It shouldn't be too hard. I'll give you a hint. CyberChef is your friend. And we also have a Python script at the bottom that allows you to do this as well. Then you're going to go through and you're going to look at the beaconing frequency associated with that beacon for that command and control traffic. Then you're going to go through and grep out all the hidden form fields. That's where the view state parameter is. And you'll be able to see the beaconing traffic, but you'll also be able to see a little bit of the C2 traffic in here as well. That's the larger data set in here and that view state parameter that you have there. And then I want you to try to decode it. This is a little bit of a challenge, right? You can try to decode it with, like CyberChef would be a good example. I gave you an example at the bottom on how you can do it with Python to import the base64 modules and then decode that traffic as well. But I'm going to treat that as a challenge. You guys go down below that if you guys feel like cheating which you may feel like cheating. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to jump straight in this lab because I want you to identify the problem statement and see how difficult it is to try to decode command and control traffic on that. And then we're going to come up with a series of tools that do a lot of network threat hunting and make it a little bit easier. So we're going to put 20 minutes on the clock. We're going to put 20 minutes on the clock, D. Brown, and we will resume, like I said, in 20 minutes. And then I'll do the full walkthrough and all secrets will be revealed. And then we're going to jump right into another lab right after that. And then we're going to be done with kind of the active stuff of testing our security products, testing our network traffic, and then we're going to get into the actual cyber deception section of this course. So let's go ahead. Let's get rolling. Let's put 20 minutes on the clock. We are back. Let's go through. Let's rock out this lab because there's a lot of ways to solve this. It's a lot of fun. Very, very good. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is just kind of walk down and get our Linux system up and running. Sure, I don't need a firewall on because I'm insecure. All right. We're going to choose accept. I'm going to go ahead and change my font. I'm going to go ahead. Let's go change settings, go to appearance. And I am going to change my font. Give it a few moments. Should have had this done before we even got here. You would think I would have had that taken care of, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to say it bold. Yet still not afraid to cry at a good movie. All right, so we're going to set that up. I'm going to apply it. There we go. Oh, look at that font. Yes, 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 yes. That makes an old man very happy. All right, we're going to CD into the opt covert directory because that's where our PCAP directory is. I'm going to go ahead and do right-click copy. Like I said, I have fewer problems with right-click copy than Control-C on that. Next, we're going to do TCP dump. We're going to not resolve any names. We're going to see the ASCII. And let's read in that PCAP file, and then we're going to hit the space bar to see stuff. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit spacebar until I start seeing, there it is right there. There it is right there. All right. So there's a number of problems with this. If you're looking at it from an IT perspective and you have some background working with like header information. So if we're going through it, we've got the host, we got the class Black Hills InfoSec. That's great. We see that it's a view state parameter. But what's really weird is it's a PHP page that it's trying to access. But let's spend a couple of moments and let's talk about what __ view state is, why it's awesome, and why we use it as a C2 channel at Black Hills Information Security. We use this as a command and control channel because it's variable in length and it's variable in the content. And that becomes like the two holy grails for advanced command and control. If you're looking at something that is always a fixed length, you can still use it as command and control, but oftentimes you'll end up with multiple, like, I don't want to say unnecessary packets going back and forth, but a lot of packets. But if you have something that's kind of obfuscated or encoded under normal circumstances, and it's randomized, then it's really, really difficult to write signatures for that in an intrusion detection system. There would be some people that would say, well, it always starts with EYJJB21, and that's 100% true. However, this isn't using any encryption under the hood. Normally, we would do encryption underneath an encoding that you're seeing here, but we're just trying to create it from an articulative purpose, how hard it is to try to find something like that. So it's random. View state is used to track session information. When people go to a website and do website things, they're able to say, okay, this user is at this part of the website, this user is at that part of the website, and so on. So it has to generate this random value. Now, view state is also variable in its length. So it can be longer and it can be smaller as well. So this makes it exceedingly difficult to write a signature because it would have to evaluate every single view state parameter that goes across the wire, which isn't really all that feasible for a lot of firewall intrusion detection system modules that exist out there. So that is our C2. And there's not much in that little blip, but that's just the beacon associated with that C2 as well. But now let me show you the actual beaconing with it. So we're going to focus on any packets that have a SYN packet. That's going to be TCP dump. It's going to be the 13th byte offset. starting at 0. You have byte 0, byte 1, byte 2, byte 3, byte 4. You get to the 13th byte, and we're going to check to see if it has a value of 2. If you're looking from like the right to left, that means the 2 is set in that 8-bit collection in that byte. That means the SYN flag is set. So we're going to copy that, and we're going to paste it in, and we're going to look at the beaconing associated with this packet capture. And we have roughly 30 seconds of beacons in this particular packet capture, right? So it's going through once every 30 seconds, and it's making a SYN connection on those packet captures, which is pretty cool. Then we're going to scroll down, and we're going to grep out all of the hidden form fields that we have, like so. I'm going to use TCP dump. I'm going to paste that in. There we go. And there is our beacon. So we have beacon, 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 data. So this is actually base64 encoded data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that base64 encoded data here. I'm going to right click and copy that. And I'm going to go to CyberChef. And we're going to go ahead and paste that in. And then I'm going to take it from base64 and decode it. And there's our command and control. So we have the command is cmd.exe. It's channelized. That means even if cmd dies, it's continuing without the parent process. You could also do it detached with a /K. PowerShell command, it's going to download a string from Google, and then it's going to invoke the shellcode. It's going to run payload, Windows interpreter, reverse HTTP. There's our L host associated with it. Now, that's fine, and that's dandy, and that's great, and that's wonderful. However, how practical is that for you to be able to do that for every single network connection in your environment? It's great from a network threat hunting perspective, but we want to try to create some automation to assist the process with it. And that's going to take us to the next lab, which is going to take us up to and through the next break. We're going to introduce you to RITA. Real Intelligence Threat Analytics and AC Hunter. So you're going to start with an HTML report with RITA, which is going to talk about beaconing. We're going to look at the same backdoor with VS Agent. But then at the bottom down here, you're going to connect to AI hosted. Now you can cut right to this one if you want. That's fine. If you want to go straight to AC Hunter and do stuff there, that's okay. Although it looks like AC Hunter may be not working. Let me try a different browser here real quick. Oh, works just fine in a Chrome browser. So if you're using a Chromium browser, it works like a champ. It doesn't seem to be working that well in Edge. When I do my walkthrough, I'll do it inside of Chrome here as well. But we'll go ahead and use Microsoft Edge. Use Chrome or a Chromium browser. You're going to connect. You're going to get an error on it, and that's fine. Continue to the website. We've given you the credentials to log in, which is training@blackhillsinfosec.com. And we also have the got beacons password that we have here. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to copy that over here. And I am going to pull this up so you all can see what I'm seeing. Do you see what I see? And I'm going to click, do you remember me? We're going to click that, and I'm going to click login. And now I'm inside of training.ai hosted. We'll go ahead and save that password, because I don't have to remember it. When it first starts up, it's going to ask you, do we want to load a data set? Now, there's multiple different malware instances on this particular server where we have WinLab agent, VS agent, we got proxy, open connections, GCAT, and each of the questions that you're going to deal with will ask you a different question. So I'll choose WinLab agent. And in the questions, it'll say something like, what is the beacon for a specific IP address in the WinLab agent dataset? So I'd go to beacons, and then I would say the mode beacon is 15 seconds, right? Now, to access the other datasets, you select dashboard, you grind the gears, and then you can choose another dataset here. Like I can open up DNSCAT2 JAW3 strobe dataset. Here we go. There we go. And then I can click confirm, and that opens up a completely different data set. And your questions will be correlated back to these icons on the bottom, where you have beacons, beacons fully qualified, domain name, proxy, strobes, intel, threat intel, DNS, and so on. So that is the lab that we're going to do, and you're going to see why this is why we look at this from the perspective of active kind of threat hunting and an active defense approach, because we have to actually work through the packet captures that we have. And like I said, this is going to take us up to and through the break. So we have about, and it'll be 10 after. So whatever the timer is for that. So we're going to restart at 10 after the next hour. So go ahead and jump in on this lab. And then once again, as always, I will do the full walkthrough and all secrets will be revealed. And we are back. I don't quite know how the team times the end of the song so many times to the perfect timeout of the lab ending. Like that is just chef's kiss. You guys, I don't know who's doing it. If it's Errol, if it's Megan, if it's Ryan, but well done timing it so it's perfect. All right, so let's go ahead and let's get started with this particular lab. I'm going to jump down to the AC Hunter section because that's the one that probably has the most useful information. And let me pull up AC Hunter, and I'm pretty sure if I refresh this, it's going to kick me out at this point. There we go. I'm going to log back in because we have 200 some people in this, right? So the first question it had you do is look at VS agent and, or WinLab agent. Well, which one was it? Let me go to the questions. Go to the questions down at the bottom. All right, so it says, excuse me, in the WinLab agent data set, what is the connection in the interval for 10.10.98.30? Now, what does that mean when you have WinLab agent? Well, WinLab agent is the actual backdoor that was created by Geoff Thayer at Black Hills Information Security. So it's a data set that is a collection of packet traffic samples associated with a specific piece of malware. Hopefully that explains that for you. But it asks, what is the beaconing for that specific IP address? So let's go through what we're seeing here. Now, with this in mind, one of the things that I do that I love with this lab is I can dump people straight into this lab and they literally can get value out of it without even really knowing a whole lot about what is going on with the data here as it's presented. And the reason why is you can kind of hover over different things and see what's going on. So if we're looking at here, it says this is the cumulative metric score for beacon connection. So we have a 98% certainty this is a non-human beacon, and we base that on 7,168 packets. The dispersion is perfect, the data size is perfect, the skew is perfect, the connections are perfect for a beacon. Down here at the bottom, we can see the number of connections per hour. I can switch that to every 30 minutes. Hourly is fine. But if you look at the number of connections per hour, we're really looking at about 300 connections per hour every single hour. More than likely, that is not a human being that is sitting there and clicking again and again and again all day long. You know, just maybe, I don't know, I've ran into some really weird people in information security, but that's pretty unlikely. Now, the question was, what is the beaconing interval? Well, the main mode of the beacon interval is we have 3,729 connections at 15-second intervals. That's a lot of connections. We also have this weird drift off to the left. The reason why we have that left drift is Geoff Thayer created this backdoor to specifically break k-means clustering, which is what we see in some Splunk instances that they use to detect it. And this will actually break their ability to detect beaconing, which is a little bit of left drift. So we have a very strong mode of 15-second intervals. And if we click our view 2 and we look at our data size, almost all of the packets are of no size in the payload. That means it's just a straight beacon. That's a straight keep alive session on that connection interval. So that is the beacon for the WinLab agent that we have. The next one we have in the GCAT data set. All right, so let's go back home to the dashboard. We're going to click on the little gear icon. We're going to select GCAT and we're going to click confirm. Let me go back into beacons, and I could also do beacons fully qualified domain name as well. Either one works just fine for that. So here we have that we have an 87% certainty. We have 7,374 connections. We kind of have a different histogram. It's not a perfectly flat histogram by hour, but it's kind of consistent there. We also have a pretty strong mode again of 5,230 connections are at 8-second intervals. And if we look at the data size is really consistent. 7,370 connections with a 1,441 byte payload. But the question was, what is the qualified domain name for those connections? And if I zoom in here, you can see that it's Gmail smtp.msa.l.google.com. What is going on here? Well, this is a backdoor that does all of its command and control through well-formed Gmail messages. It basically goes through at looking, it checks its email and it looks for commands. As soon as it receives a command, it executes that command and it gives the results back. If you look over here, we have one connection with 4,620 some byte payload. That was data actually transferred on this as well. So we actually created the first proof of concept on this. And the name of the tool was GCAT. And this was created by ByteBleeder. This is a proof of concept code that we did a number of years ago. And this particular backdoor we released to demonstrate that if you're using something like Google, if you're using Salesforce, if you're using Twitter as a command and control, it is very, very, very hard for people to detect it. And if you want a more up-to-date version of this tool, it's called GDog, which has some really cool things built into it as well. Now, what is the likelihood of this being used? Well, there was a Wired article that was released a number of years ago. If you remember the original attack against the Ukrainian power grid before the war, where the Russians broke into Ukraine's power grid and shut it down in Kyiv for a number of days, they were using GCAT as its command and control. And using something like Google as a command and control protocol is actually highly effective. And the reason why it's highly effective is intrusion detection systems, firewalls, and intrusion prevention systems tend to ignore absolutely everything that goes to Google. And this actually makes sense. If you think about it, there's an XKCD comic that I think is great. It's XKCD tar. It says, Rob, you use Unix, come quick. To disarm the bomb, simply enter a valid tar command on your first try. No Googling. You have 10 seconds. Rob, I'm so sorry. Imagine if every single time you Googled a command, every single time you tried to Google the output of a log file, it generated an alert. It would generate alerts all the time. And people would be like, oh, John's trying to figure out how to tar a directory again, right? So you would see that again and again and again in the logs. So a lot of intrusion detection systems, intrusion prevention systems, and firewalls flat out ignore absolutely everything that goes to Google Mail and goes to Google. And they do this for two reasons. One, false positives, and two, speed. If you ignore everything that goes to Google, you're going to be running a lot faster. The last one is for the DNSCAT2 JAW3 strobe agent dataset. What domain has the highest lookup account? Well, let's go ahead and let's load that dataset now. So I go to dashboard, click the little gear icon. Let's go to DNSCAT2 JAW3. And then I can click on the DNS icon because we're answering DNS questions, right? And for this one, let me zoom in on this. You can see it. We have 62,498 68 fully qualified domains. What the hell is a fully qualified domain? If you look at www.google.com and mail.google.com and maps.google.com, those are fully qualified domain names. And it looks like R-1X has 62,000 of them. That is not normal. That does not happen in normal day-to-day things. There's one example. I'm not going to get into it. It's a weird edge case, but it happens once that I've seen in my entire career. The number of lookups are 109,227. That's a lot, right? If we drop down and we look at like Akamai, or even AKA DNS, Akamai DNS, it drops way off. Even Amazon doesn't have that many. So what the hell is going on here? This is a command and control package called DNSCat2. And DNSCat2 submits all of its queries and responses over well-formed DNS text records. That's pretty insane, but we can go deeper. We can see who's making the queries. You can see that we have one system, and only one system is making the queries. That's it, one system. But that may be normal. Believe it or not, that may be normal. What do I mean by that may be normal? What is that case where one system makes all of those queries? Domain controller. For many organizations, the domain controller is the DNS resolver for internal systems. So it's very common to see DNS resolution going through the Active Directory domain controller. Awesome. However, if that was true, I would see all the DNS requests coming from one system, but then there would be multiple computers making direct connections. And it turns out that is also the only system that is making direct connections. So this is a compromised computer system on the inside of this network that's using DNS as its command and control. Now, you may be thinking, and one of the questions that you have with this tool is like, how does this relate to other tools that are out there? A couple of different things about that. Number one, our largest customer is running at 100 gigabits per second. I didn't misspeak. That's 100 gigabits per second. And they compared AC Hunter to a number of other vendors, from Darktrace to ExtraHop to Vectra to a number of people. And they said that we were the only ones that could keep up with the speed and could actually do this type of network threat hunting. Also, this particular backdoor was, it actually caught SolarWinds about 2 to 3 months before the SolarWinds attack was caught by Mandiant. When we caught it, we were doing a proof of concept for one of our German customers. We found out their SolarWinds server was compromised through that proof of concept. We dealt with it. We didn't think that it was some big attack by the Russians. We just thought the system was compromised. And the other thing is, if you remember, there was a bunch of different telco and cell phone providers that were breached in the end of last year and also this year. AC Hunter was one of the only tools that detected that breach. But once again, don't take my word for it. AC Hunter is free. It has a community edition. We have a full community edition that you can run in your house. If you go up here, we go free tools. You can go to, where is it? Where's my community edition? Oh, here it is, right here. It's under AC Hunter Community Edition. And I have a lab where you can set up all of AC Hunter in the Community Edition for free in your own house. And if you're looking at what is the difference between the Community Edition and the Enterprise Edition, we have this as well. So you can do all of this stuff at home. In fact, if we go to that lab, I go back to my labs, Strand.js GitHub, I'm using Bing and it feels dirty. It's a new computer system and I haven't switched my browsers yet. So we go to navigation. We have a full lab right here on setting up AC Hunter at home. You do not need a SPAN or a TAP port. You just set up AC Hunter on one of your Ethernet ports on your systems at home. And in the examples, I walk through how to get it running in a virtual machine. And then we do ARP cache poisoning on your home network to route all of the traffic through your AC Hunter system, so you can get full visibility in your home traffic, in your home network, and you can play along with it. No problems whatsoever. You've got it. So these instructions are here and they're available. And trust me, this works because I have teenagers and they hate my AC Hunter system. It detects when they're going to sketchy sites. It also detects really detects very, very, very cleanly when they try to go through a VPN on that as well. So that's it. That's AC Hunter. This is really important because when we're looking at backdoors and we're looking at how attackers are using network-based like obfuscation to hide, it requires you to dig in to figure out what is actually going on in your environment as well. All right, let's keep going. So We're talking about IDS and IPS, and those signature-based vendors are getting exceedingly difficult for people to be able to detect attacks with strictly signature-based detection. So when we're working with AC Hunter and we're working with RITA, we're releasing, well, by the way, for those of you that don't know, RITA is the free open source heart and engine of AC Hunter. It is what runs and does everything. And by the way, RITA is free and it always will be free. We have like 26 patents on RITA right now. And we got those patents. And by the way, the tool is named after my mom, who passed away from cancer a number of years ago. And one of the requests that she had, she was kind of working with BHIS, kind of became the unofficial mom of the dev team. And when she was fighting cancer, she said, could you keep this tool for free? Because the community has been so good to us. This is a way that we can give back. So yeah, RITA itself is free. AC Hunter is very, very, very cheap compared to other tools out there as well. So check it out. All right, so let's go back to venom and poison. What are these two things? How do they actually work? What do we do to deal with them? We talked about this briefly in the first section. When we're looking at poison, we're talking about something that needs to be interacted with. It's relatively inert. And I would argue even a poisonous spider is relatively inert. If you look at a spider, it just kind of chills on its web, you know, just kind of hangs out, just chills. And it really doesn't bite anybody unless it gets attacked, right? So it's kind of passive. It does its own thing on its web, right? It's just vibing, vibes spinning. And a mushroom is poisonous, okay? Or let's say we have a poisonous, like flower or something like that. It just kind of chills, kind of sits there, and you have to interact with it for bad things to happen. When you're looking at a venomous thing, we're talking about something that is actively hunting, right? If you're looking at a venomous snake or a venomous platypus, these are things that are actively striking out. And as I mentioned yesterday in the previous modules, we sell poison in this class. We are not selling venom. We are not trying to get into the point where we're striking back against attackers' IP addresses in the efforts to try to find out what's going on. Because usually those IP addresses that the attacker are using, usually those IP addresses are IP addresses that they have taken over themselves. And it's an innocent third party who has been compromised. So we want to make the bad individuals interact with something, a Word document, a Java app, a web page, a honeyport, or a honeypot, something in that environment we want them to interact with. And when we break up the poison that we're going to create, we break it up into three categories: annoyance, attribution, and attack. Now, generally, when we're talking about annoyance and attribution, you don't need to bring in lawyers. You don't need to spend a lot of time and money and effort trying to pay for things. It's not something that you got to get all the management together and get everyone holding hands and making sure that we're all going to be able to be okay. You can just stand this stuff up and make an attacker's life miserable. Annoyance works like that. So I'm going to give you some different tools and some things that I have seen throughout the years that really are a lot of fun in the game of trying to annoy attackers when they're trying to break into your environment. So Mr. Clippy, show us the way. Now, a long time ago, there was something like PHP IDS, and it's still out there as well. So PHP IDS is an intrusion detection system for a PHP server. Now, with PHP IDS, you can configure it and you can make it so after so many attacks, it can do something. It can either ban that IP address or do a number of other actions, logging and alerting. One of the things that you can do that somebody did a number of years ago that I thought was really cool is if you launch a number of cross-site scripting, SQL injection attacks, remote file includes, indirect object referencing attacks, all of these different things, Mr. Clippy can pop out. And Mr. Clippy can pop out and say, hello, according to PHP IDS, it looks like you're trying to pwn my site. Would you like some help with that? And if you click that link, it takes you to the OWASP website for getting started in penetration testing of websites. Now, you have a situation where you're trying to hack a website and Mr. Clippy comes out and is basically like saying, yo, noob, get good. Spend a couple of moments and let's think about taunting attackers and doing things like this. What do you think? Is it a good idea or not? Right? Should we do it? Should we not do it? Well, a couple of thoughts on this. Couple of thoughts. The first thought is you have people that say you don't want to make attackers mad because if we make attackers mad, then they're just going to hack harder. And I disagree with that. I disagree with that. It's basically like trying to tell your kid, go ahead and let the bully continue to beat on you, because if you try to fight back, they're just going to beat on you harder. That's not how it works. That's not really how bullies work. Bullies are bullies, right? The other thing is I fundamentally believe that it's not true. I told you in earlier sessions that I did hot nation state on nation state action. Ooh, so hot right now. And we had a series of rules. And one of those primary rules was don't get caught. Don't get caught. And there's a number of reasons why, as a nation state adversary or as an attacker, you don't want to get caught. Of course, you don't want to go to jail, right? But when you're talking about nation state level adversaries, if they get caught, their tools, tactics, and procedures are burnt. And tools, tactics, and procedures cost money. Lots of money, a whole lot of spending money, because I got my mind set on you, right? And if those procedures are burnt, somebody higher up the chain has got to make a decision as to whether or not they want to take the risk to burn those procedures. So when I was doing this stuff, there were times where they would say, it's not worth it. We're not going to burn some 0-day. We're not going to burn some implant. We're not going to burn a technique for trying to gain access to an environment. But there were times where we were working on operations and there were direct people's lives at risk, and a commander or a general would make a decision to burn the tactics and take the risk because the short-term interests of the mission outweighed the long-term intelligence collection. I'm sharing this with you because when you're an attacker and you see that Mr. Clippy has popped out and taunted you, I want you to go back to the OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, and act. At this particular point, the attacker's OODA loop has been thrown into a tailspin. At this particular point, the attacker now knows that their ability to successfully observe is severely diminished. At this particular point, the adversary now knows that the opponent, that's you, your ability to observe has been greatly accelerated in this particular scenario. And the vast overwhelming number of attackers will not take the risk. So I don't recommend necessarily taunting hackers. And I shall taunt you a second time. No. But doing things like this at least let the adversaries know that there is a risk associated with them trying to break into your website. Other things we can do is successfully troll the attackers by obfuscating what it is we're doing. We're talking about, from MITRE, present the adversary with a variety of installed applications and services. This goes back a long time ago in my career. This goes back into 2007. At this particular point, I was just closing down my career at Northrop Grumman, where I was doing classified stuff, and I was ready to start my journey in starting Black Hills Information Security and becoming a SANS instructor. And there was this Boing Boing article that came out. Boing Boing was like Reddit, but way back in the day. And the Boing Boing article was somebody had said that they had found an Apache web server that was running on a Commodore 64. And the whole point of the article was, this just proves that Commodore 64 could have been a contender. It could have been an operating system the masses used, but it just didn't get the opportunities to be able to become that operating system, and blah, 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 yada, yada, skippity hop. And it turns out it wasn't a Commodore 64. It was somebody that had modified their Apache banners so that every day or so, it would change the operating system of their Apache server. One point it would be an Auric Dragon. The next time it would be a CBM Pet. Then it would be a ZX Spectrum 48K rubber keys. It would be a Toshiba HX10. It would be a Cray. And this seems like it's really cute. By the way, I've given you a link on how you can actually do this with mod security banners on Debian and things like that. But this seems really, really super cute. But this actually does have an impact on vulnerability scanners. It does have an impact on attackers. So what many vulnerability scanners do is they attempt to identify what are the services, the versions of the services, and which operating system those services are running on. If you can obfuscate your services, if you can obfuscate your operating system, the vulnerability scanning results will give you incorrect data. This happens all the time legitimately with backported patches on Linux systems, where it looks like the version's behind, but it's just a backported patch. The version number hasn't been upgraded, but the individual incremental patches have been applied. And this does increase the amount of time it takes for an attacker to successfully identify what it is they can do to take over those systems. Another one, going way, way, way back in time. When I first started teaching this stuff, I originally started teaching it at Black Hat. It was a Black Hat class. I remember I went to Stephen Northcutt, the president of the SANS Institute, and I showed him this class that I was writing. And I was like, hey, do you think SANS would do this? And he laughed at me and said, dude, we will never touch that class. We will never touch a cyber deception class ever at the SANS Institute. Good luck. And then I went to Black Hat, and it was one of the top selling classes for over 5 years. And it was the #1 selling class at Black Hat for 2 of those years. And then Ping retired from Black Hat. Ping Look was a good friend of mine. Black Hat got acquired. Things got weird. Started my own training company. And here we are now. But one of the things that I initially started teaching, that I started kind of showing people as a technique, is the idea of IP address space on the outside of your environment, right? The idea of IP address space on the outside of your environment. A lot of organizations have IP ranges that they own, and they're not even using all of their IP addresses in the ranges that they own. So let me give you an example. Let's go here and let's go back to, let's go to Shodan. I don't think I have Shodan up and running anymore. Shodan, show enough. Here we go. And let me log in again. And I need you guys to give me, name one live IP address on the internet that you know is an IP address on the internet. Uh-oh. Am I in the wrong one? I must be. Oh, here we go. Let's go back to Showdown. Right. If you excuse me for just a moment, I'm going to sneeze. And we're back, editors. All right. So if we name one IP address, most people would name, let's say 8.8.8.8, right? And spend a few moments. Who owns 8.8.8.8, right? This is Google's DNS servers, right? So when you're looking at dns.google.com, we see that its IP address is 8.8.8.8. And what I can do is I can do net : and I can do 8.8.8.0/24, and I can put in the classless interdomain routing associated with that range that particular IP address is sitting on. And let's see what Google has in that network range. Are they using every single IP address in that network range? Let's see if I broke Shodan at this particular point. There we go. No, I have one IP address in that entire range. So Google clearly owns that 8.8.8/24, but they're not using every single IP address. So what we can do is we can start using those IP addresses that aren't being used and putting in fake DNS entries. The reason why this works is because attackers will do something called a reverse lookup. If I use a straight lookup, I'll look up something like www.google.com, right? And that'll work. However, I can also do a reverse lookup where I can do I can do a DNS lookup based on IP address, where I can say, what's the fully qualified domain name for 8.8.8.8, and it'll come back and be like dns.google.com. So what you do is you use the space, and you can also do a star record too, but you use the space that's unused in your DNS entries. So when the attacker is trying to do a reverse lookup to identify systems, they're going to get all kinds of different things, cracked, FARC, Bill, James, Kim, John, mail, SMTP, FTP, web DNS, VPN, paul.com, all of these different things. There's only maybe 1 or 2 of those things that's real, but we can put in rules that if somebody is trying to look up a host and is trying to resolve a host that doesn't really exist, but it was created as a honeypot, we can now take active measures, active countermeasures to block that IP address. because a normal user is not going to do this. This is not something we're going to see normal systems and normal environments, and I just lost my mouse, went all over the place, doing on a regular basis. Now, years ago, when I first gave this presentation and talked about this as a technique, and I don't think I'm even close to the one that developed this technique. I'm sure that people have been doing this for years. But when I was giving a presentation on this, one of my best friends, Josh Wright is the current Dread Pirate Roberts. He took over being Dread Pirate Roberts from me. And I was Dread Pirate Roberts, and I took it over from Ed Scotus. And Dread Pirate Roberts is the author, the current author of the SANS 504 class, which is a fantastic course from the SANS Institute. If you can take one class this year, you should take something from Anti-Siphon. But if you take two classes and they can afford to send you to a SANS class, go to SANS 504. It's phenomenal. And Josh Wright is somebody that I care deeply about. And he asked me, can I please come to your presentation and disagree with you on this? And I was like, sure, I'd love a spirited conversation in this area. And Josh Wright showed up and said, hey, look, this particular technique that John is talking about here, it seems like a lot of fun, but if I'm a pen tester and you're hiring me to break into your environment and you do this, it's going to take a lot more time for me to try to break into your environment and test and evaluate your security if you have these smoke screens set up. And is that something you really want me to do as a penetration tester? And I asked Josh as a joke, I said, so let me get this straight. You want me to reduce my security so you can better evaluate my security? Right? Now, eventually this problem was solved because we got away from just pen testing being the thing, and then we have red teaming. If you're hiring somebody to do a vulnerability scan or a red team, you probably want to let them know that you're running deception because you don't want them to waste a lot of time. But red teams, leave them up. Leave cyber deception up for your red teams out there as well. So easy peasy to do. So let's talk a little bit about evil web servers, and let's get into another lab. So when we're looking at web servers, we can create a tremendous amount of annoyance in a variety of different ways to make the attacker's life absolutely miserable in trying to attack said website. We can even create possible DOS conditions against the hacker and their system and their computer, like web app attacking tool that they're running on that as well. So we can do that, setting up rules. We can set up all kinds of different things. And we can hide it by configuring robots.txt, and I'll talk about that here. Let's talk about it now. So what we want to do is we want to create something that your general user population won't deal with, but your general user population won't deal with, but a hacker absolutely will deal with. So if I go to like sans.org, like so, right? I get the SANS website. It's a great website, very cool, very pretty. But I can do / and I can do robots.txt. All right. If I go to robots.txt, it gives me a whole bunch of things. It tells automated legit crawlers like Googlebot, MSNbot, BaiduBot to avoid. It says, do not go to registration. Do not go to admin. Do not go to JSF. Do not go to shipping policy. Do not go to pen test. What is it? PPCLP, COVID-19, state and local information, different events for different days and things like that. Now, this is created by someone I haven't talked to in a long time, but I still consider him a close friend, Johannes. Johannes Ulrich is the guy in charge of the Internet Storm Center, and he does all kinds of really, really, really super cool stuff for the community in the Internet Storm Center. And if you go to some of these pages, it'll automatically deny list you from accessing the SANS websites for a period of time, right? So we can do something like that, but instead of just blocking an attacker, we can set a trap. We can set up a spider trap for the attacker. So in this lab, you're going to look at spider trap. You're going to run spider trap against your own local hacker system. And this is going to take us 15, 20 minutes to get through, right? But you're going to go through and you're going to run spider trap and you're going to see the impact on what an attacker does whenever they run into spider trap. So it's in the labs. If we go back to the lab list, we go all the way to the bottom to the cyber deception labs, and we're going to do the spider trap lab right here. All right, so this is going to take us up to and through the break. And when we get done, I'll start doing the walkthrough of spider trap, why it's important, and we'll keep going. And we'll talk about how not getting shot is an incredibly important aspect of any cyber deception plan. plan. So let's get rolling. I'll see you on the other side of the break. All right, everybody. So let's go ahead and let's do the spider trap lab. So I'm going to make sure that my VM is still running. Wake up, VM. Uh-oh. The VM is dark. Hello, darkness, my VM. All right. Let's see if we get it back. There we go. That looks much better. All right. So I'm going to just Control C this one because I can reuse this exact same terminal for spider trap and everything that we're doing. And I'm going to go all the way down into getting my IP address. Let's do ifconfig, copy, and paste that in there. There we go. That's good. Then we're going to cd into the opt spider trap directory. Right. And then we're going to start spider trap. And we're not going to do anything crazy cool with it at this point. It's just going to generate a bunch of randomized links at this point whenever somebody tries to connect to port 8000 on this computer system. So we're going to surf to 10.10.213.75. So let me open up that browser. Let's go to 10.10.213. I completely forgot the IP address. What do we got here? 10.10.213.75, port 8000. That's port 800, John. Not enough zeros. There we go. And as soon as I make a connection, it brings up a series of randomized links. And if I click any of these randomized links, it opens up more randomized links, which in and of itself is pretty cool. Now, remember, the goal of this isn't to get an attacker to start clicking the links, over and over and over again, because that's just weird, right? That's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is we're trying to catch an automated crawler that is doing this. Now, in order to catch the automated crawler that's doing this, we actually need to change up SpiderTrap's usage a little bit, and we have to feed it in a directory listing. Now, I have this directory listing from a tool called Dirbuster, and its whole purpose in life is to basically be a big, huge monster list of commonly seen directories on various web servers. So we're literally going to feed this directory list to the attacker, which usually whenever they're running these attacks, they are running these attacks using this actual directory list. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to restart this again. And now you're going to see that the actual directories change quite a bit. Now they're no longer just randomly named URLs. They've got like weird numbers. We've got a culture link. We've got pyramid schemes. That was good. Bookmarks for Firefox. Prudent on politics. I'm sure that guy's fun at parties. We've got Loki. We've got public library, standard encodings. These are all different directories that have been found, all of these different types of servers on the internet over the years. Avanti, there you go. You got an actual device at that point. So we have all of these different directories. And as I choose these directories over and over and over again, it just gives me more directories in these different sites. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open up another Kali instance right here. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is, once again, I'm going to make this larger. Actually, I don't need to. I'm just going to grab the wget command. So what we're going to do now is we are going to do wget against ourselves. Now, what exactly is happening here? Most of the time, whenever an attacker or pen tester or anybody is trying to attack a website, they're going to kick off an automated web crawler, and it's just going to run while they go to sleep. They're like, all right, the crawler's running. Time for a nap, or it's time for some of that delicious brewberry coffee. You can really smell the burnt overtones. That's weird. All right. So they have a cup of coffee. They go to sleep. Maybe they go shopping. Maybe they go shopping for coffee. Maybe they get coffee while they're shopping for coffee at a great coffee shop. I don't know what they're doing in their coffee related days because honestly, I just don't judge. Meanwhile, their automated crawler is just crawling and crawling and crawling and crawling and crawling and crawling, crawling. And on their attacker computer system, what it's doing in the background is this. It's actually creating a directory listing. If I go to 127.0.0.1 and I type ls, it's creating a local copy of every single file that it's detected. So what happens with this is eventually their hard drive becomes filled to the brim and it crashes their computer system. Or if they're working with some type of commercial crawler from a third-party expensive tool, it actually loads all of these different directories into memory. And eventually it exhausts all the memory and blue screens the attacker's computer system. We can even get nastier with this. One of my favorite things is something called a gzip bomb. Hello, Daddy. Hello, Mom. Here's a zip bomb. All right. So a zip bomb, you can actually drop zip bombs in the middle of this, and web architectures use a variety of different types of encoding and data compression for transferring data across the internet. And you can literally send an attacker a zip file or a gzip file that is terabytes large. It's very, very small in where like the actual size of the zip file, but once they try to decompress it, it bombs and completely crashes their computer system on that as well. So if we're looking once again at the detection time and reaction time, and we're looking at the attack time, we're now greatly increasing the amount of time it takes for the attacker to successfully attack your web page. Because we set up these traps using robots.txt, literally telling the attacker, don't go there, knowing full well that the attacker's automated tools are oh, they're going to go there. All right. They're going to go there. Oh, they went there. And then it's going to completely crash out their attack and scanning tool. Now, every once in a while, I'll have someone that tells me, it's like, well, you know what I do as soon as I find that particular trick, I will start manually crawling the website. Good. I will take that trade all day, every day of the week. Because what we've just done, again, is that attack time is now through the roof, right? Because now if the attacker has to manually crawl through the website because you have these little hidden form field elements that reference your spider trap instance again and again and again, and they're encoded in a variety of different ways, that's great. Now we've greatly increased the amount of time it takes for an attacker to try to do a full web app attack against your server. And that is a good thing. All right, next section we want to talk about is how to not get shot, and how not getting shot is important, or how to set this up in such a way that you don't get shot. So let's talk about this just a little bit. Let's say that we have a system we want to investigate. Let's say that we want to set up some type of attributional technologies, and we want those attributional technologies to reach back. Let's say I'm creating Word docs, and those Word documents beacon back to a system. I don't want them to connect back to my system. I don't want them to connect back to my personal computer system. I want them to go someplace else, right? Let's say that you do have an IP address that you want to investigate. You want to bounce your attack traffic off of something to try to launch that attack. And generally in the industry, direct connections are a huge no-no. You're not allowed to do direct connections to an attacker's computer system. And once again, the reasoning for that is usually the attacker's computer system is somebody else's computer system that is not a malicious attacker on that as well. So we don't want to do that. So if we're going to set up something that is a beacon, let's say a Word document or an executable or a VPN config or whatever that may be, we don't want it to come back to us. We want it to go someplace else that we want to blend that in. Now, why exactly did I create this section of this course? And by the way, this is still in MITRE. Create an account that is used for active defense purposes. So years ago, in a land far, far, far away, and by years ago, I mean, I think I was doing this, I think the story I'm telling is from like 2009, 2010. I was working with a law enforcement agency, not that one, or that one, possibly that one. I don't know, whatever your third choice law enforcement agency would be. And I was teaching them how to use cyber deception for the purposes of attributing and detecting and identifying very bad people, right? And you can fill in, I'll just say it, they're drug dealers, really, really horrifically bad drug dealers, right? And we talked about how we could create attributional documents, how we could create attributional spreadsheets. We were talking about all the wonderful things that you could do to try to find out the location of that bad guy on the internet. And the class went great. We were done. No, they were not caffeine dealers, as some people would like to bring up, with all my caffeine and coffee related stories, although they were importers from South America. All right. So class was wonderful. Hugs all the way around. Cue the music from the ending of Saturday Night Live. A couple of months later, one of their lead technicians contacted me and said, dude, I just want to let you know, great class. We had an awesome time and we totally use these techniques to catch a drug dealer. I'm like, oh, tell me about this drug dealer. This is like awesome. Like, oh, he's a bad drug dealer. Really bad? Yeah, super bad drug dealer. He's a very bad dude. Well, one of the things that he would do, of course, is he would literally like cut off the heads of people and ship the heads and the body parts back to various family members. I'm like, well, that's a really bad dude. He is a bad dude. Great. So what techniques and technologies did you use? Well, we used this technique, we used these techniques, and we did these things. I'm like, great. Where did you guys stand up your servers? And he goes, what do you mean? I'm like, well, where did you guys stand up the servers for the attribution to come back? And he goes, well, we used the servers that you gave us. I'm like, wait, what? What? Yeah, you set up these servers for us and we used those servers. I had forgotten to disable and shut down the servers at the end of the class. Completely forgotten to shut down these servers. So they used my servers to track down an evil person. And of course he said, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry. He'll be in prison for the next 20 years. See, I think it was 2008, 2018, 2000. Oh no. Yeah, it's coming up. So from that point on, we started doing this in a way where I give you guys a VM and then you guys can do it on your own. And it's not mine out there as well. All right. So one of the things we want to do is we want to set up ADHD in a non-attributable fashion, preferably on a third-party hosting provider. This sounds easy. It's actually a little bit harder. So you'll create a lot of, instead of the annoyance stuff that you can totally set up on your own server, if you're trying to set up attribution, those attributional artifacts will respond back to one of your servers. And you want that server to be somewhere else, not related to any of your servers. Gotta be careful with my hand motion there. I just realized that got a little weird. But we want that server to be somewhere else going and doing other things, right? And we want to have it set up to where it's not attributable back to your organization. And we also want to make sure it's not attributable to you or anybody who is a real person. One of the things that comes up very often when you're trying to set these up is a lot of organizations will be like, oh yeah, John, why don't you just go ahead and use your private credit card and set this up and then just expense it in and I'll approve it. You can see how that would be a little bit of a problem, right? Like that may not be the best choice in life for you to not get shot because they're now having you set this stuff up. So it comes back to you personally, right? So be careful. So you can set up the server via name and an email address that is not a real person. Quick note, just quick note. At this particular point, we're moving into the land of violation of terms of service. When you're setting up a server in Amazon or DigitalOcean or Linode, they really like to make sure that you're a real human being doing real human being things, like breathing would be an important thing, right? So we're going to be telling you to lie at this point. Now that may make you feel bad, right? But you know what feels worse? Bullets. All right. So let's not worry about that. Let's go ahead and lie. It's okay. It's a little white lie and we're doing a lie to catch bad people. So I'm sure that doing bad things to catch bad people never backfired in the history of anything ever at all, right? So we can route all of this through non-attributable email addresses, PayPal, domains, and hosting providers if at all possible. So it's critical that you use a third-party anonymizing proxy to connect back to your whatever instance you're using for ADHD tools, right? But here's the problem. What happens if you try to create a new Gmail account and you're connected through a VPN or Tor or I2P? For many websites, if you try to set up a PayPal account, if you try to set up an email account, if you try to set up domain hosting, and you're bopping through VPN or anonymization services, they tend to kick you over and they're like, look, we're going to set up this email, but we're going to need a copy of your passport, driver's license, a blood sample, birth certificate, social security number. And we're going to need a credit report from the past 5 years, because they are absolutely checking where people are connecting to from. Now, once you have set up, if you try to set up all of that stuff up, if you connect to your service through these, not a problem. All's good in the hood. So if you set up a cloud instance with a cloud provider, you're totally set up, you're fine, life is good to connect in with like Tor, I2P via SSH or Guacamole or remote desktop protocol. That's fine. But that initial setup is the problem. So here's what I recommend. Go to McDonald's. Go to a hotel chain like a Hilton or a Hyatt and set up your initial stuff from there. Because if you look at what Walmart's Wi-Fi or McDonald's Wi-Fi or Hilton's Wi-Fi does, they pop all of their Wi-Fi through a centralized point of presence. And the reason why they do that is they're tracking absolutely everything that anybody that's using that wireless network is doing online. They do that for advertising. They do it for a number of different purposes, right? Another place to do it, go to like Home Depot or Lowe's. Some Best Buys have wireless networks. Now, what's really funny about those wireless networks is if you try to go to Amazon, they'll block Amazon, which I think is adorable. But those also work really, really, really well because you're popping out through a network connection that is routed through and basically aggregating a whole bunch of traffic from hundreds of McDonald's or hundreds of Lowe's improvement stores or whatever. So you go through that. Now, the question that people will ask sometime, why would Lowe's and like Best Buy and like Home Depot block people going to Amazon? That's because they don't want people to like treat Best Buy and Lowe's and Home Depot as the Amazon showroom, right? All right, but those networks work. After you have set up the account, the email account, after you have set up the account, the hosting provider, after you have set up the PayPal account, feel free to connect to those things after the fact using these non-attributable means. So avoid using Google and Microsoft. Privacy really isn't their thing. There is some questions and some doubts about Proton Mail. A lot of people in the criminal world got really frustrated, not just the criminal world, but Proton Mail has actually started working with various law enforcement agencies around the world. I still think that they're very, very solid. They're just not going to drop. And what they do drop, it doesn't really show as much as you would like. But at any rate, you're going to use this email address as your main account and your main point of registration. I also recommend a very long, strong passphrase. Never reuse that password anywhere else. If you have to provide an address, I recommend providing an address, a famous place that has nothing to do with you. One of my favorite examples of this was Blues Brothers, the good one. Blues Brothers, one of the best, if not the best musical of all time is Blues Brothers. However, the worst musical of all time was Blues Brothers 2000. I usually don't walk out of movies, folks. But that was a movie I walked out of. Blues Brothers 2000 was horrid. And I was in, I think I was in like, what year was I in college? I do remember, and I don't talk about this as a way of trying to normalize this, but I think I was very, very, very high and drunk at the time, and I still didn't enjoy that movie. Another kind of reference on this is I thoroughly did not enjoy Blues Brothers 2000, and I went and I saw Spice World, the Spice Girls movie, had a blast at that movie. That just goes to show you how incredibly insufferably bad Blues Brothers 2000 is. Now, some people will argue Cats was the worst musical of all time. I don't know. That's a tough one. I'm kind of in the Roger Waters school of looking at Lloyd Webber, and he has a great quote. What is it? Something about Lloyd Webber's. It's in the album Amused to Death. But he has this line that says the piano lid comes down and crushes his effing fingers. It's a miracle. But people are like, come back. These are the things this is the spice of life, right? This is a mnemonic device. No one's ever going to forget this section of the class at that particular point as well. All right, so hosting providers. Some hosting providers are a bit insane, right? And how they verify you. Amazon is really strict. Microsoft, super duper duper strict out there as well. So you've got to be ready to pay for these hosting providers. I recommend PayPal or prepaid gift cards. You can go to Walmart, you can go to all these different places, and you can get prepaid gift cards that will expire after a while. I like that. They're getting rarer and rarer and rarer. We use DigitalOcean for all of our pen testing needs, but you need to like let DigitalOcean know that you're using it for legit purposes. So if they see attacks, you got to let them know that you're doing a security team, you're doing deception, or you're doing pen testing. DigitalOcean has treated us really, really, really well. Linode, not so much. Linode wasn't great. There's been a couple of times where they were like, let me think. Oh, we're seeing attacks coming from your IP addresses. And I'm like, I've told you we're a pen testing company. We're locking out all of your systems in the cloud and shutting down every op that we did. That made me bad. Made me mad. Not bad, just mad. Very angry at that particular point. Burner phones. There's so many options out there for burner phones. And the coolest thing about burner phones is you get to feel like a real spy, right? So a lot of these different services want some type of two-factor authentication that'll verify you as like, oh, well, we'll send you a text message to this phone. That's great. So if you're looking at it, burner phones are awesome. You can get them at Walmart, Target, gas stations, little to no cost. Depends on how crazy you want to get. You can get a burner app. By the way, your phone can still be traced and you get to feel like a real spy. I don't know how far down the rabbit hole you all want to get on this, but I had a lot of burner phones because I was teaching law enforcement and a bunch of people as far as ops. And I had tons of burner phones laying around in my office. And my kids, when they were growing up, my youngest was in middle school and he really, really, really wanted a phone, but he was a little bit too young to have a phone. So one of my students, or a number of my students, didn't take their burner phones because they're crap phones. And he took one of my burner phones from work, took it to school, and was showing it off to all of his friends. He's like, hey, everybody, look at me. I've got a burner phone. And all the students that he's in school with, they're like, dude, what's a burner phone? It's like, it's a phone that my dad uses to not get caught by the government. And the teacher was like, hey, what the hell? You got a phone? It's not allowed in school. Yeah, it's one of my dad's burner phones. She's like, why do you have a burner phone? And I got called in and I got to explain to my kid's middle school teacher why my son had one of my burner phones and what I do. And there's no explaining that you can possibly do that makes that okay. There's always going to be that suspicion for your burner phones and why you have a burner phone. So be careful with the burner phones. Don't let kids get a hold of them because that would be bad. All right. All right, so paying for it all. Do not purchase with a corporate credit card. Now, this is getting to the point where we're a little bit crazy and a little bit paranoid. Like we're kind of moving off the deep end. For the stuff I've done with law enforcement, the stuff I've done with intelligence agencies, we want to be this insane, right? Like we will go out and go to Walgreens. We will purchase these different prepaid gift cards with cash. And that was awesome. Once COVID hit, I could wear a mask and it was awesome because I could buy these things. I still can. People look at you funny, but you can go in and buy these cards and about $100 to $500 will work for about a 2 to 6 month operation. Then you tie a PayPal account to that card and then you're ready to rock and roll. Good stuff. So let me give you an example on how this is set up. You're still going to set up your honeypot things like honey docs, honey badger, canary tokens, honey ports, all of those things. But if the attacker does any direct callbacks, when those things trigger, it doesn't trigger back to you and your domain. It triggers back to your hosted instance. I also recommend that when you're creating a domain, you come up with a name for a domain that is going to blend in. Let me show you something here real quick. Let's go back to the VM. Where is my VM? Is it here? Where's my VM? I think it's over here. There we go. All right, so let's open up a straight up command prompt on the system. And I'm just going to open up a new browser tab. And I'm just going to leave it here to whatever this. Oh, yeah, that's great. Leonardo DiCaprio's girlfriend, Victoria Cardi, makes a rare comment. I turned 24 and he doesn't like me anymore. So I've got all of this weird stuff going on. And if I go to my here and I do netstat -F, if I look at all of the established connections that are made from this particular system, you're going to see a whole bunch of ad services fire off here in just a couple of seconds. There we go. So we have a bunch of things like A0003.A.msedge.net. We got A2373.207.17 deploy static akamai-technologies.net, Cloudflare. Oh my God, look at all of these weird things that we're making connections to. You can stand up a domain that looks like an ad domain very quickly and very easily. And that's what I recommend you do for setting up your domain. For the callbacks, when you set up that domain for the callbacks, you want it to look like something like standard ad level traffic firing on that as well. All right, so let's move on and let's go to honeypots. Let me get into a good long lab. A honeypot is basically an object that is meant to be interacted with by an attacker and never with legitimate users. And you should try to find a way to honey all of the things. So one of the great labs that we have coming up here tomorrow actually is our honey tokens lab, or canary tokens. Just phenomenal stuff, right? So this is one of the coolest websites ever. We have tons of canary tokens. We can create web bugs, DNS tokens, credit cards, QR codes, Microsoft Word documents. We want to canary absolutely all the things everywhere all the time. So as soon as an attacker interacts with it, we know that something bad is up to, and we've got some shenanigans going on that particular system. So we can look at these honeypots in a number of different ways. Most universities, whenever they're dealing with honeypots, they're doing research honeypots. And this gets into a problem that's deep in my heart. I have university students all the time come to me and they're like, hey dude, I'm looking for some research and what do you recommend? And I'm like, well, here's some really cool things you can do. And they're like, that's great. But how about this? How about I take a Windows Server 2003 and I put it on the open internet and I see what happens. I'm like, it'll get hacked. And they're like, yeah, but then I can see how the attackers broke into it. I'm like, it's going to take seconds. Why would you do that? I'm like, for research, right? It's really, really frustrating, right? We don't want to deal with research honeypots. We want to deal with production honeypots. Production honeypots are systems that are created and files that are created with that are low interaction, high yield, and high fidelity. That allows us to identify and deal with attacks very quickly. I don't want to set up any honeypots that are a lot of effort. I don't have anything in this class where they're like, well, let's create a honeypot sandbox. That's not anything I have here because that takes a lot of time. And usually most of the research that you do is basically like, well, they exploited us with an unpatched service. And once they got on, they dropped some malware. And that malware had the ability to run commands at the operating system. It had the ability to set up command and control through an encrypted channel, and it had the ability to move laterally. And there's nothing new under the sun that you're learning with research honeypots. It's very, very rare for you to see that. But what we're doing on these production honeypots is we're trying to identify malicious internal systems and users. We're trying to identify attacks that AV and intrusion detection systems missed. And we're trying to identify and trying to enrich our incident handling procedures in our environment. So many teams will try to use this to learn how hacks work. Don't do it that way. Literally take a forensics class, literally take a pen testing class and how attacks work. It's much better than trying to set up your own like hacker ant farm. Is that kind of like an alien ant farm? Hacker ant farms are different, right? It can be a huge time sinker and it doesn't provide much value. And instead you can focus on real world attacks on there as well. So how do you handle system compromises? This gets into how you're going to set up your HoneyNet technology. Sometimes you're going to want to just detect and clear. You detect an attack and you immediately clear the attack. You just want to get it off. It's like that spider. You walked through the spider web. You just don't want that. You know, you're walking through a spider web, leave a message and I'll call you back. Sometimes you want to detect and learn. You want to watch what that attacker is doing. Are they after dropping wares like cracked software? Are they just searching for top secret? Are they doing credit cards? Are they trying to create a DOS or a booter type system? What else do they have access to? This class is going to focus on how we can use this to detect and learn what the attackers are doing. So with honeypots, we want to set them up in such a way that we can detect techniques that other attacks that would possibly be missed by our security technologies. I told you about Bruce Schneier's quote, "Security through obscurity is no security at all." but we can clarify that and bring that back down. We can look at detection time plus reaction time must be less than the amount of time it takes for an attacker to break into your environment. And if we're looking at a lot of traditional IDS IPS, they're specifically looking for known attacks that they have seen before. And we're trying to break through to get to the other side on that, to start detecting the stuff that those technologies would miss. So we're going to get into a lab here that's going to take us up to and through the break as per usual for honey users. We're going to create a trap in our environment where if anybody tries to do a password spray with a fake domain user account, we can do this with service accounts, we can generate an alert and detect that attack in the environment on that as well. Now, we're going to be doing this lab for post-exploitation in Active Directory. An example would be we have a user account that we create, somebody gets popped, the attacker does a password spray, and we're able to detect that password spray in the environment. We would need to create a rule in our SIM to be able to detect that type of attack in our environment. But all of this can be done on the inside and it can be done on the outside. Fake LinkedIn users, fake Facebook profiles, fake Blue Sky profiles, and see if an attacker tries to break into your environment on there as well. So let's go ahead and let's jump in to, actually, I believe it's the last lab of the day. Maybe we'll get to another one. I might get into a lab that we work on tonight and then we walk through it tomorrow morning. But this particular lab is the Honey User Lab. In this lab, we're going to create a Honey user. His name is Frank. Why Frank? Because that's why. Let's get started. You're going to open up a command prompt. You're going to move into intro labs. You're going to run the script 200 user gen.bat. Should look like this. Then you're going to open up Event Viewer and we're going to create a customized XML view of how we can filter for anybody that ever tries to log in as the Frank account right there. We got query list. We have all this good stuff. It's awesome. Then we're going to save this rule and then we're going to start a password spray attack. We're going to open up another Windows command prompt. We're going to move into intro labs. We're going to invoke PowerShell. We're going to set the execution policy to unrestricted. We're going to import the module local password spray.ps1. Then we're going to launch the password spray with a password of winter 2020. And you're going to see a whole bunch of accounts were compromised, but not Frank's. Turns out it doesn't matter if it's Frank's account or not. Just the attempt is all that matters. Then we can do user remove. Now we can go back into Event Viewer, hit refresh, and you'll see that there's multiple attempts of people trying to log in to our Honey user account. So that is the lab that we're going to do. It's going to take us up to and through the break, and I will see you on the other side. We'll do the walkthrough. We'll set up some stuff for an additional lab, and we'll have you guys work on that lab, and I'll do Ask Me Anything, and then we'll do the full walkthrough of the lab tomorrow morning. All right, so let's get rolling. All right, so before we jump into this lab, I wanted to take a couple of seconds, and throughout this class, I'm going to talk about some of the people that sponsor our Pay What You Can initiatives, and I'm going to talk about two, and I have a request of you all, if you can do me a favor and you're available. I have two vendors I'm going to talk about today. Tomorrow, I'm going to talk about another two vendors, but we're going to talk about who makes this Pay What You Can stuff possible from a class to class perspective, because there is money that goes into it, right? Like we have staff that's working here. We're putting the stuff up. We're hosting VMs in the cloud, and these are groups that are awesome to work with. So the first one I would like to talk about is SAS Alerts. If you could take a few moments and you could go on Twitter. I don't think they have a Blue Sky account, and actually in a couple of the people that we're looking at, I don't think they have Blue Sky accounts. But if you can go check out SAS Alerts on LinkedIn or SAS Alerts on Twitter and just take a second and say thank you for supporting the Pay What You Can initiative. SAS Alerts is a platform that basically identifies misconfigurations and does automation and remediation of security vulnerabilities in cloud providers. And the reason why I really like SAS Alerts is they tie what they do very closely to Bo Bullock's breaching the cloud class. There's a bunch of different cloud security providers out there, and I'm not going to name names, but to be honest, they kind of suck. They've got kind of their head up their own butt, and they think they know what attacks look like, and they aren't talking to the pen testing community, and they aren't trying to learn what actual attackers are doing, and they literally chase the wrong rabbit. So as soon as something hits the news and a cloud attack, then they put in a detect. But there's tons of things that we do as a pen testing community at Black Hills Information Security that work. And we're not detected by those. I mean, on the news the other day, we were talking about Wiz, and Wiz was acquired for $32 billion by Google. And I can't think of a time where we're like, and then Wiz got us. You know, it just doesn't work that way. And why they're not keeping up on current cutting edge attacks, I have no idea, even though they have really good write-ups and things of that nature. However, SAS Alerts works very closely with Bo Bullock. They work very closely with myself, and they are supporting the Pay What You Can initiatives. So please do me a favor, go out on Twitter and just say thank you to them. And that's important. It's kind of like now a word from our sponsors. It lets these guys know, because they have marketing people. They're like, well, are we getting any return on investment? I'm like, you're doing a charitable thing. So this is a low cost way. All you have to do is say thank you to these people on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, right? The next one is Vincent. This is his account. It's My Smart Logon. He is the author of Ping Castle, and Ping Castle is amazing. It's a really cool tool. It's free, unless you're using it in a commercial setting. So check out Ping Castle, and they're another group and networks. But Ping Castle is the main people that sponsor us. If you can go out and you can let Vincent know thank you, and you can let SAS Alerts know thank you, we greatly appreciate everything that they're doing to help us with this. And it's awesome because we have people that are like, well, we'll sponsor, but we want the email addresses. We want the email addresses of everybody that registers for your class. And these are the sponsors that don't ask for that garbage, right? They're the ones that are trying to do the right thing, and they're trying to help people do the right thing. And I cannot stress enough how important it is. So today we're going to mention SAS Alerts. We're going to mention Ping Castle. Get out there, show them some love on Twitter. I would appreciate it as well. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and let's drop into the last lab of the day, Honey User. So we're going to open up a command prompt, and we're going to CD into intro labs, and then we're going to run 200 user gen. And I think my session finally timed out. That's what you get when you do 4 hours. I think it's done, actually. Let me try to reconnect. See if it works. Nope, it's going to let me in. Wow, it's just still going. It's like the Energizer Bunny of virtual machines today. So I've got a command prompt. Let me close this. Let me close that. All right, there we go. We're just going to open up a standard Windows command prompt, and I am going to CD into the intro labs directory. And then I'm going to run 200 user gen bat. And this is going to generate 200 users just so it looks more realistic to everybody when you're doing a password spray attack. Usually we would do it in a domain setting. In this situation, we're running it on the local setting. It's the same tool, the exact same technique out there as well. It's just really, really kind of a way of cheating and making it look more realistic on that as well. So now we're going to create a custom view in Event Viewer. So let's go ahead and let's open up Event Viewer. Let's go here and I can type Event. See Event Viewer and I double click it. There we go. And then I am going to go into Windows Logs. Come on, there we go. Going to go into Security. And then we're going to create a custom view. All right, now this Windows custom view that we're creating in the security event log is basically designed for us to detect anytime anyone ever tries to touch the Frank account. So I'm going to right click, I'm going to copy that. There we go. I'm going to go onto the raw XML. We're going to edit the query. Yes, I know what I'm doing. Thank you. We're going to go ahead and delete everything, and we are going to paste it in. Let's see, are we having a little bit of trouble with copy and paste? It's interesting. Let's try to open up Notepad. There we go. Okay, I'll go with that. Copy. We'll go in here and then paste. There we go. That worked. All right. So now we've got our query is created. I'm just going to call it Frank. That's Frank. There we go. Going to click OK. And we're actually going to have some entries for the Frank account right off the bat. And the reason why we have some Frank accounts is it's not like something that triggers right now moving forward, but it actually applies to all the previous event logs as well. So we have like, what is it, 4 event logs when we created the Frank account just a couple of seconds ago. So now what we need to do is we need to start PowerShell, and then we are going to do the, we're going to do the actual attack. So I'm going to do PowerShell. There we go. Now we got PowerShell, and we're going to set the execution policy to be unrestricted, like so. Then we are going to import the module local password spray. There we go. And then we are going to invoke local password spray with the password of winter 2020. All right. Now, if you look closely, we broke into 6 accounts. And once again, none of those accounts are Frank. None of those accounts are Frank's account. Now, this particular tripwire and what we're doing and how we're setting it up isn't designed to only trigger when someone successfully logs into an account. We're setting this up so it triggers when they even try to authenticate. So even though Frank did not show up here on this list, we still triggered the kind of honeypot and the honey user account in this particular scenario. All I have to do to see that is I have to go back to Event Viewer. I click on refresh, and then you're going to see the additional event logs where we tried to authenticate to Frank. And both of those are login attempt was using explicit credentials, and the account failed to log in. And that should be enough for us to trigger an alert and do something about it, and actually react to it. Now, the idea is not that your attacker is going to see this particular user account and automatically go after Frank. When we're looking at what we did with the password spray attack up above, this is indiscriminate. A completely indiscriminate attack. It's not that anyone has to identify and try to specifically go after Frank's account. It's just, this is what attackers do. Whenever an attacker gains access to an environment, they're going to automatically try to do things like a password spray. They're not going to pick and choose their accounts. They're going to go right after it, and they're going to nail that specific account. Now, the biggest problem that we run into at BHIS with our Security Operations Center is we have organizations all the time that set up this account, they work with this account, and then after a few months, their auditing team destroys the account. And I'm going to destroy my lab right now to kill my credit usage, right? Now, the reason why they do that is they have policies that state that an account will be disabled or locked out if it hasn't been logged into over a specific period of time, or its password hasn't been changed for a period of time. You need to create an exception for these honeypot user accounts so they don't get disabled by your auditing and security compliance team. All right, so let's go ahead and let's keep rolling with the slides a little bit. And we'll talk a little bit about canaries. I'm going to set the stage for the lab and what we're going to do. We'll do the lab tomorrow morning. So tomorrow we're going to start right in with the lab. We're going to take us right up to the lab today. Now, with canaries, you want to create not a honey user, but an actual honey service, right? We want to create services that look like real services. And when an attacker interacts with that service or that port, something beneficial happens for us and something bad happens for the attacker. And Canary has a whole bunch of really cool honeypot services: file transfer protocol, HTTP, SMB, SSH, Telnet. We're going to be playing with HTTP honeypots. We're going to be playing with an SMB honeypot. We're going to be playing with an SSH honeypot as we progress over this next section. But the cool thing about OpenCanary is you can configure it to automatically send emails, automatically send text messages, automatically send notifications to you when someone interacts with that particular service. And the most basic one that we can work with is the concept of a honey port. Now, what this is a very basic port listener that sits, and as soon as anybody interacts with it, it reacts in a very dramatic way. It automatically deny lists the attacker. Now, we're going to talk about this, and tomorrow I'm going to talk about some of the problems, some of the issues, and some of the concerns that people run into with honeypots and honeyports. Point is, you don't have to worry too much about them if you set them up correctly. So a honeyport is a simple port that triggers an action when they are connected to. You can have it generate a deny list entry. You can have it generate an alert. You can have it fire up something like Mr. Coffee. If they're not done correctly, there is a chance you could deny list legitimate systems. However, if we learn how connections work before you implement, we can bypass all of those issues and make them highly effective in a way that you wouldn't normally expect. There are some tools. We talked about this before the class got started, things like fail to ban. Doesn't matter what your service is. If there is a legitimate service out there, you should be running fail to ban. If you have to run SSH on a publicly facing server, run fail to ban. And what fail to ban does is as soon as a certain threshold of failed login attempts is tripped, it automatically deny lists the IP address that trigger those alerts. Now, it can do this across multiple different services. It can do this with SSH. It can do this with web services. It can do this with Telnet. It is super simple to install and configure on your systems. There's literally no reason why you should not be running fail to ban on your systems. So now we've got the lab that we're going to talk about, and then tomorrow morning we're going to do this lab. We're going to talk about honeyports, and we're going to create an auto drop honeyport from the command line on your system. We're going to do one for Linux, and then if you're feeling spunky, you can jump in and you can do one for Windows as well. But there's a series of different write-ups and steps that we're going to do because I want you to think these honeyport tripwires through. All right. And I have a full solution. If you're familiar with Bash, totally treat this as a challenge and run it as a challenge. If you're not familiar with Bash, just cheat. It's fine. Just go to the ending and just cheat. And both of those are fine to do. So we're going to show you how to do this. And one of the main reasons why I do this lab is I've had an injustice inflicted upon me. When I was working in classified systems, I wanted to bring in honeyports to really mess with the NSA red team. And I couldn't bring in outside software. So if I wanted to bring in an outside utility, an open source project, and it wasn't on the low risk and approved software list, they were like, no way, no how, we're not going to let you see the wizard, right? Or they would be like, yes, we'll submit that up to the fort and we'll see what they have to say about it. And like 9-10 months later, they'd be like, we need more information. It was annoying. So I had to create this on the fly in a classified environment to shut down an internal red team that was coming after one of the servers that I was protecting. And at that time, that particular server was not a protectable web server. It was an old technology stack. The software was mission critical. It had to be up, and there was no way we could patch it before this red team. So I had to get creative. And this lab is going to take you through what I did. So one of the things that we do on Linux systems is we can work with IP tables. IP tables is a super powerful Linux firewall. Very, very flexible. In fact, at the heart of most of your commercial firewalls that are running today, they're actually running IP tables with a slick GUI over the top of it. Why? Because IP tables is fast. It is running at kernel level. It is very, very fast at what it does for packet inspection. So we see that in a lot of different vendors out there. And a very simple rule for IP tables would be IP tables, adding a rule to the input chain. We're going to add in the protocol as TCP. The source is the IP address 172.16.30.42. We're going to jump to the drop chain. This will add a rule for all TCP traffic that comes from that IP address is automatically dropped. You can do output, you can do forward, you can also do NAT rules as well. So to clear your rules, you would do IP tables, you would specify just flush, and would flush all of your rules. Now, what we're doing on this Linux one is we're going to be working with Bash, okay? We're going to be working with this in Bash. It's very powerful. It's absolutely everywhere. It is the first scripting language for many IT professionals. And we're going to be doing a loop. We can do a while space, open bracket, space one, space, close bracket. We can also do while colon, semicolon. We can do while squiggly bracket, true, close squiggly bracket. There's a number of ways where you can set up a loop where something repeats again and again and again. If you wish to assign a variable, you could do foo equals bar. And then if you do echo $foo, it's going to print bar because we have assigned the value bar into a bucket with the name foo. The other command that we use is uname that prints out like command line, just showing you how we can use cut. So we can do uname minus a, prints out all of our kernel information. And then we can use cut, specify a delimiter as a space. We got quote, space, quote. And then we can say, I want to see the second field. I can also do 3, 4, 1, and so on. Now, the main heart of this entire lab is a tool called netcat. Now, what netcat does on its own is it simply waits on a network connection on a port. That's it. It's like piping directly across the internet or a network connection itself. But what you can do with netcat is insane. It's one of the most powerful tools in information security. So if I wanted to create a listener, I could do netcat, don't resolve any names, that's the N, be verbose, listen on port 8080. That would create a simple listener on port 80. Let me show you. Well, I shut off my VMs. I think I can do it here. Just wait. Let me check something. Okay, that's really weird. Let me go to Conqueror. Console. Cool. I can do it. All right. So here, oops. Let me kill my slides. There we go. Let's pull this up over here. So here I have created a very, very basic netcat listener on port 8080. Okay. So I'm just listening on port 8080. And on this side, I can go netcat 127.0.0.1, right? And I can connect on port 8080. Now, by default, I have nothing, right? I can just send data back and forth, back, forth, right? Back, forth, right? And I can move that data back and forth between these two netcat instances. One is listening on a port and the other one is connecting. And it's just a simple little like chat program where I'm sending data back and forth. This simple concept can actually be extended quite a lot to the point where you can have entire backdoors, you can set up relays, you can do all kinds of crazy things with netcat. So you'll be doing a lot with netcat on this as well. And when we're doing this, we're saying don't resolve any names, be verbose, and listen on port 8080. Next up, I can use grep to find specific types of strings, right? So you can pipe data through one command into another. So I could do netcat, be verbose, listen on port 8080, pipe it, and I can do a search for the string connection from. And it'll only print the strings that have the phrase connection from, and I can see those. We can also deal with shell redirects, input, output, and error. Once again, if this is completely confusing to you, don't worry, it's fine. I'm going to do a full walkthrough. I'm going to show you where the solution is. You can type through the solution, and tomorrow I will do a dedicated walkthrough of the solution, showing people and explaining to people exactly how this works. So don't panic and always bring a towel. All right. So DevNull is a good place to stick things from time to time. All right. Now you're going to need to chain some things together. You're going to need to take the output of one command, assign it to a variable, and try to capture it for an IP tables rule, right? I also encourage that tomorrow you guys work together on this. I have the solution or a solution right here. If you're completely lost, you can just try to type in the solution, and then I will walk through what the solution does. Now, is that the only solution? No. There's a number of ways that you can solve this exact same problem. Okay. But what we're doing here is we're going to kind of work through it. Now, if you're feeling spunky, you can also jump into, this is how it works. You can try to do the Windows version of this as well, where we do a for F loop. We specify delimiters, a space, semicolon, open bracket, close bracket. We got the tokens. We got the percent I as the variable. It's very much the exact same thing that we did on Linux, but we're doing it on a Windows computer system. You can do that if you hate yourself. That's fine. If you hate yourself. And with that, we're going to call it for this section. All right, editors, we're going to be moving into Ask Me Anything. Let me grab my chair. Because my weary bones are getting tired. All right, so let's switch over to Discord and start answering questions. Once again, all of the recordings, just in case you're curious, all of the recordings are in the resources section. So if you want to see, what we did yesterday, if you have to miss a day or if you had to miss a session, we got you covered. So right now, feel free to ask me any questions that you all have. And then tomorrow we're going to do this lab. If you want to do this lab on your own after hours and get a jump on it, feel free. There's a really great website called Explain Shell, where if you want to go through my solution, type it in and kind of learn what it's actually doing, you can use Explain Shell for that as well. So if we want to do this all in one big VM, are we working on a project for that? I haven't for a while. Couple of reasons. The hosting cost in S3 buckets was kind of a pain in the butt. The other thing is a lot of these tools and techniques can stand on their own as well. How often do you find honeypots as an attacker and how do you identify them? We find them more and more and more all the time. In environments, especially now pen testing for BHIS, because a lot of my customers are my students. So my students go through these classes, they see this stuff, and then they hire Black Hills Information Security and they smoke my pen testers with honeypots. And it's kind of a weird thing for me. It's bittersweet. One, I am very, very excited when a customer successfully skunks out my pen testing team. But at the same time, it's really hard on my pen testers, right? They take that really seriously. They're like, wow, I got beat by this customer, and they hate getting beat by a customer. So it's one of those situations where no matter what, I'm going to lose, right? And I'm okay with being in that position at this point in my career. Either A, my pen testing team gets skunked because someone implemented a lot of really cool cyber deception, or B, my pen testing team is wildly successful. And if I have to choose between those two, I will choose to get skunked every single time. Do you have any recommendations where to learn Bash, PowerShell, and Python for cybersecurity? Learn Code Online is a great website. Code Academy, there's a bunch of them out there. And really, you got to jump around until you find one that resonates with you. There's not any one of them that I'm like, hey, that's the best every single time that you should be using on that as well. All right, what else? Would this activity appear in EDR tools? If so, during a pen test? Most of the stuff we're talking about wouldn't. So if you're talking about like this technique that we're going to talk about tomorrow, this isn't something that would hit your EDR. A lot of Linux and Unix systems don't have EDRs on them, unfortunately, but we are seeing that get better moving forward. But a lot of the stuff we've talked about is external to the EDR. And even with that, we've got EDR bypasses and the attackers have EDR bypasses. Red Siege has EDR bypasses. It's really, really common for people to see those things out there all the time. What is the best way to blur out, hide identifiable information in a report? We just don't put it in the report usually. Or what you do is you put a little like cover icon over it and then you screenshot that. So we'll do like the little black box and then we'll screenshot that. So it's a little bit more difficult to try to redact it at that particular point. So is there a term for a honeypot subnet? Yeah, that would be called a honeynet, Devil's Vendettas. A honeynet. There we go. We got Code Academy. That's where my kids and stuff played with it as well. And then we also have a Bash scripting class, Intro to Python, and then command line. And we also, I thought we had a PowerShell class from Carrie Roberts as well. When does all the AI LLM Gartner hype cycle get to the plateau of normalcy? So most of the coolest things that I've seen in the AI hype cycle so far actually came in the area of explaining crap to junior analysts, believe it or not. So if you have like a Saracato alert or you have an alert on any number of IDS or antivirus products using AI to enrich that alert so the analyst gets better understanding and concepts of what that alert means is truly where I'm seeing most of the power for LLM and AI right now. Right now, just like AI is going to stop all attacks is not a thing out there yet. Oh, left drift, Swathinator. So let's imagine that you have a beacon, and that beacon is anywhere between, let's say, 10 seconds to 6 seconds. So you would have the vast majority of connections at 10 seconds, but then you would have a smaller subset of connections to the left between 8 to 10 seconds or 6 to 10 seconds. So let's say that we got 400 connections at 6, 407, 408, 409, and then 7,000 at 10 seconds. That's what I mean by like a left drift example. So resources and optimization techniques like TrapX and Acclivio, both of those are really cool, but most organizations have a really hard time getting funding for those products. So I recommend that you start with a lot of the open source tools and techniques that we start with in this class. And then you circle back after you get some quick wins in the industry. And then you have them kind of really start evaluating those commercial products. One of the problems I have with a lot of those products is they tend to overcomplicate it, and they really like honeypots. I don't spend a lot of time talking about honeypots. There's a lot of other things that you can put in. And to be fair, they're getting more of those things. I had one of those two vendors, by the way. One of those two vendors reached out to me about 4 or 5 years, and they called me and they were like, "So our product caught your pen tester. Do you have anything to say before we go public announcing that our product catches Black Hills Information Security?" And I'm like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, one of our customers said that our product caught Black Hills Information Security's pen test team, and we're going to go public with this on Twitter and with a press release. Do you have anything to say before we go public?" And I was like, "Well, first, that's not a very nice way to start this conversation. And second, I recommend that you don't." And they were kind of snappy with me. And I kind of told them, I'm like, "Look, I want you to go look me up." And I hate telling people to Google me. That's one of the biggest a-hole things that you can do in this industry. And I was like, "You should really Google me and kind of like research what are the things that I'm advocating in the industry." Because I am one of the biggest advocates for cyber deception in the industry, hands down. And if you attack me like this, I will attack you. I will say cyber deception is amazing, but don't buy it from these a-holes. If you would have called me and asked me for a statement, if you would have called me and asked to do a webcast, if you would have called me and literally done anything, I would have worked with you and your product to help support your product. But to start the conversation by threatening me is absolutely the incorrect way to go about doing it. And luckily they did kind of back off of that, but yeah, it's kind of a jackass move on that as well. Can we get a copy of the last slide, please? All of the slides are in resources on the resources channel in Discord as well. What are the best ways to be protected on a terminal? Man, I don't know. That's a weird question, right? What are the names of the tools you use to bypass EDR aside from what's happening in these labs? Well, we aren't covering how to bypass EDR, but later I show you some tools and some things that are out there. And EDR, most of what we're doing is we're creating custom tools and different techniques that we have internally. There is a vendor that we do work with. The name of the vendor, we've got 2 vendors that we work with. One is Brute Retel, B-R-U-T. Brute Retel is a command and control framework. And I'll share that one. So that is one tool that we use. And then the other tool set that we use is called Outflank Security. And they have custom tooling that they have that we use as well. So I recommend both of those vendors. So we have Brute Retel and we have Outflank, but then we do a lot of custom things that we do as well. So There you go. Do you ever use difficult to trace cryptocurrency like Monero for pay? Yeah, I do. One of the problems with a lot of the providers that accept cryptocurrency is they're very sketchy. So if I'm running an op, I'm not 100% certain that they aren't just scraping absolutely everything that I'm doing on the back end. So I've got to be a little bit careful about those things as well. So just a heads up, you can totally do that, but it depends on your use case and what you're working with. But at the same time, you want to be very careful on that. Does AC Hunter have an alternative UI? It looks like something you would see in a hacker movie, and it's not a serious tool. Oh, come on. I can share with you what the new version of AC Hunter looks like. But no, we've got a different UI that we're developing, and I can share that tomorrow with you as well. Actually, I might be able to just bring it up here. So this is the new version of AC Hunter. The new version of AC Hunter is really, really focused on two things. One, speed improvements. AC Hunter currently can run at a set at 100 gigabit speed. But this new version is probably, I don't know, 20, 30 times faster than the old version of AC Hunter. So it's wicked, wicked, wicked fast. So any one of these, you can double click and actually dive in and get all of the exact same data that you had gotten before associated with it. So we can see the beacons, we can see the connection time, we can see the intervals, the source destination. We can do additional research on the destination, which is pretty cool. So there's a lot going on with the new version. So that's the big thing. So it's no longer running Mongo as its backend database. It's now running a completely different ClickHouse database, which is way faster. You can also get a hint on what this is. You can take an action directly from each one of these, and then you can add tags and add custom tags for your own internal team, which is pretty cool. The other thing, if you don't like the way it looks, you can change you got the databases, safe lists, alerts. You can also change the theme. And put in a bunch of themes for people that are colorblind and have different like problems seeing in different colors. So we've got that all set up as well. So this is what the new version of AC Hunter looks like. And I'm pretty excited about it. And you guys will get a chance to look at it once I update the new AC Hunter lab on that as well. So yeah, it still looks like a hacker tool, but you got to understand it was a tool. It was a tool that was created by hackers. I mean, if someone there is like, hey, your tool looks like some kind of tool that hackers would use, well, yeah, got me. So pretty cool, but we really try to focus also on the font that's there for dyslexia, and then also dealing with the color lines that work for people that have color blindness and that as well. So, all right, what other questions do you all have for me? Because I got sidetracked with the new version of AC Hunter. Have you ever found someone you taught using any of the techniques or the tactics that you teach? Yes, absolutely, Shellcode. There was a breach a number of years ago for HP Gary. They were a consulting firm that I think was bought by Mantech. But HP Gary was like Greg Hogland. Then we also had Butler and then Gary. Hogland, Butler, and Gary, or HP Gary. And the attackers for that particular attack, they went through exactly how they exploited HP Gary. And I swear to God, if you look at the techniques that they use, Ed Scotus and I talked about this. They literally used the exact same types of techniques that we taught in SANS 504 and 560. It looked exactly like something that we would do and that we taught, down to some of the switches and things that they used as well. So there you go. Are we going to see a sacred cash cow tipping on zero trust app whitelisting? We can. It's just we haven't done that in a while, and we probably should, right? We probably should. That would be a good webcast. And the way that we're doing those webcasts is a little bit different now. Instead of like, here's an active technique on how to bypass AV and EDR and all those different things. We don't want to put people at risk immediately. So what we have been doing is doing it like these are techniques that have worked in the last year that no longer work now. And that's probably what we'll do again. Dapper Necromancer, what is the coolest active defense implementation you've ever used? So I'm going to talk about this with word web bugs, give you guys a tip, and maybe try to get you guys to show up tomorrow, right? So I'll give you a tip on how I helped a law enforcement agency get a girl that was kidnapped back. How does that sound? So show up tomorrow, and I will tell you that story. So talk about breaking the ISC. Okay, so the Internet Squared's Code of Ethics. I was teaching a class on how to pass the CISSP. And then I had a number of students. I don't know how you know that there's a story about that. That's pretty crazy. But I had a number of students that had gone through my class, and I got invited by ISC Squared to help proctor the certification test. And I showed up, and they had me fill out this form. And there were two things on the form. One of those things was like, have you trained anybody on ISC Squared CBK? And then the other thing that it said was you are not allowed to teach anything related to the ISC Squared, like the common body of knowledge, for 2 years after this. And at this point, I was like full on SANS instructor. That was my income. That's how I fed my family. And I told him I can't sign this, right? I just can't sign this because I teach computer security. That's what I do for a living. So the person that was like in charge of the proctors called the home office for ISC Squared, and I could literally hear the guy on the other end of the phone screaming and yelling that was basically like, get him out of the room right now, blah, 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 swearing and all this crap. And I was kicked out of the exam because I wouldn't sign this thing because it told me I couldn't teach anything in the 10 CBK for 2 years. And they started a whole investigation. I should go through and find that Yahoo email where they basically resolved it, but I was suspended as a CISP for a period of time while they were doing the investigation. And they interviewed me, and I basically was like, hey, seriously, this is a question of like my integrity. If I had no integrity, I would have signed the stupid document and I wouldn't have said anything, right? So they dropped the charges or dropped the investigation. But sure enough, I almost lost my CISSP. Now, years later, I did lose my CISSP, but that was just exclusively because I didn't pass the certification anymore. And I didn't pay the dues because they wanted you to constantly pay $450. And I was like, I'm at a point in my career where I don't care, right? Like it's just like so many bad stories. So I had a situation once where I was doing a pen test for a customer. This is actually relatively new. And one of the people that was interviewing BHIS asked me point blank, do you have any certifications? And I said, no. I used to have my GCIH. I used to have my CISSP. I used to have my GCFW. I don't have any certifications anymore. I also think I passed the CEH, but I was drunk at the time. I don't know if I was ever certified CEH or not. I remember taking the test at a company party one night. But that's a whole nother story. And the company was like, well, I don't know if we can hire your company. You have no certifications. It would be better if you had your GCIH. And I'm like, my GCIH, I'm the lead course instructor for the GCIH. Like, I can't get the GCIH because I'm helping write the cert and the class. So it's kind of weird how people take those things. But once you get to a certain point in your career, you're kind of done with certs. And if anybody is like, oh, we wish you had certs, it's like, I can move on and go party with other people. Yeah, I've been sober for a number of years. That's a whole nother story. If you want to hear about it tomorrow, I'll be happy to talk about it on that. So yeah, it's not, yeah, that's a longer story. But no, you need to come tomorrow and I'll talk about the kidnapped child case and, we'll talk about sobriety and things like that as well. And, Megatron Griffin, that's awesome. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap it up for today. I want to say thank you very much for hanging out with us. We really, really, really do appreciate it. And tomorrow is going to be an awesome day. We got a bunch of new labs and we're excited to see you. So with that, get out, be safe, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.